words. Like the 9 scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. All right. So what I'm telling y'all is I'm here to help, but I'm not from the government. But again, ladies and gentlemen, y'all aren't going to fail tomorrow. I have failed enough for all of us today. All right. So with that, there we go. All right, Liam, thank you so much. Okay. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, now let me go ahead. Few words from our sponsors. Okay. So just to start everything, make sure that you know that Romulus APUSH review is on the App Store. Okay. So that's just my little trivia app. Just something that is, just something that I have put together. $2.99 App Store and Google Play, number 76 in education. I mean, it's just a little trivia app, like basically like, okay, what did which act was it that did this, right? So Parliament passed coercive acts, also known as the intolerable acts, okay, which as far as that goes, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that I just realized there's a tiny error on that question. There's something of an error, but I'll fix it one of these days. But it's just a little $2.99 app. Now, also, I've got an SAQ clinic starting at 10 p.m. That is at crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to see that in the description. You might have to refresh. If you're on Crowdcast, I'll make sure to send y'all the link to that. But that is starting at 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to go through SAQ formats that are just going to be on the digital exam. So we've got the primary source, the map, and the data source. Okay, so those are the 3 things: primary source, map, and data. Okay, and so as far as that goes, that's starting at 10 p.m. That doesn't have to be watched live. That can be watched at any time, really. Okay, so that can be watched anytime. Now, also make sure to go to marcolearning.com if you're looking for last-minute study guides or practice exams. Okay, so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to free resources, either study guides or practice test, you can find a full-length practice test with answer explanations. Okay, so that should be helpful. Also, at 7:30, I'm going to be closing off this broadcast and going to Marco Learning's channel to do a little review there. Okay, so we're going to be here for about the next hour and 10 minutes, and then we're going to head over to Marco Learning's channel. Okay, so we will be there in a little bit. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about the Romulus app, the SAQ clinic at 10 o'clock. You can see that on Crowdcast, and then of course Marco Learning, where we'll be later. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and send an SAQ clinic link to those of you who are on Crowdcast, so y'all can go ahead if y'all want to join that. But let's go ahead and get started, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so can I talk about the specific things you need to do to score points on the SAQs and the DBQs? Okay, now SAQs are fairly easy, okay, that as far as that goes, and see, POV, me trying to promote an SAQ clinic, a premium SAQ clinic, trying to get y'all to pay $10 for that. But the thing is, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I mean, so POV me, I'm telling the truth here, because it's against my self-interest perhaps, but it's in my self-interest to help y'all. So the thing is that SAQs, it's a matter of answering the question. Now, I always think about SAQs as specific answer questions, not short answer questions, but specific answer questions. I tell you, George Washington's looking like a little bit off there, isn't he? Let's see. Just let me just try to straighten this painting up just a little bit. Y'all know how I am about symmetry. All right. So as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, that's that's what we've got. What we've got here. The SAQs. Most SAQ readers, it's not. People don't miss SAQs because they didn't follow a format. They missed the SAQs because they didn't know the answer. They didn't have specific stuff to say. So with that, what we want to think about is when we're thinking about, short answer questions, I always call them specific answer questions. Okay, so I am a big fan of calling it a specific answer question because the biggest thing is that you're contributing something. You'll note when you read the SAQs, you can see that they want a specific piece of evidence to back up your claim. Okay, I will take that, Venetia, as a compliment. Okay, I'll take that as a compliment. Okay, so with with that, ladies and gentlemen, and let's go ahead and, oh my goodness, let's get that user out of here. Okay, so as far as that goes, I think we are starting, right? So with that, the SAQs are pretty self-explanatory. Now, answer in complete sentences. Make sure that you make some sort, you answer the question, you make a claim, you back it up with a piece of specific evidence. How specific, Richie? As specific as you can, okay? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as specific as you can. Now, remember that I will be doing the SAQ clinic at 10 p.m. Eastern and going more in depth about tackling SAQs. Now, APUSH DBQ rubric, okay? If you Google APUSH DBQ rubric, you will be directed to my website. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen. So let's go ahead and go into how are we going to write an APUSH DBQ, okay? So rubric and tips, you can go there, and I'm going to look at the rubric on PDF. And so as far as that goes, let's go ahead and pull that up and go into what is it that we're going to find here on this exam, okay? And so going from that, with this, we will, we'll see this here. And so going from that, we will, we'll go on here and let's see. So first of all, contextualization. Now, the standard format, what most people like is contextualization and thesis in the first paragraph. Now, I'll tell you that the thesis has to be at the beginning or at the end, but contextualization can be anywhere. Now, one thing that we can do here is if you go, let's see, APUSH 2021 DBQ walkthrough, okay? So I've got an APUSH DBQ walkthrough on YouTube, okay? So I've got an APUSH DBQ walkthrough where I basically go through this whole thing here. And so going from there, let me go ahead and see here that when you go into the description, I've got a Google document where I basically answered this year's DBQ, okay? So when we think about this, evaluate the extent. Oh, we got some friends in here with me, a bunch of anonymous animals here. So evaluate the extent to which economic growth economic growth led to changes. Okay, so as far as that goes, just one second here. Okay, so with that, evaluate the extent to which economic growth led to changes in society from the period 1940 to 1970. And so with that, our question here is, it's kind of a CCOT thing as far as that goes, that with this, to a great extent or to a lesser extent. And the thing is, if we want to be like super complex about it, which a lot of y'all do, we need to think about individual things that are either to a great extent or a lesser extent. So as far as that goes, the way that I like to start a paragraph on the DBQ to try to earn contextualization and thesis. Now, remember, contextualization can be anywhere, and it also can be cobbled together. Like a reader can find a bit of contextualization here, a bit of contextualization here, and a bit of contextualization there, and it's okay. Okay, so you can kind of cobble it together, and that's fine. Okay, so contextualization is describing a broader historical context. So what is the natural contextualization? So economic growth from 1940 to 1970, I'm thinking. Now, there are tons of ways to contextualize. When we think about the natural contextualization, is that, that when we see here, I'm going to think about the Great Depression and a bit of World War II, but basically stay on an idea and kind of stick there. So for my contextualization, and remember, contextualization and outside evidence, they need to be socially distanced, okay, from the documents. We need things that aren't even referenced, okay, in the documents is what we're looking for. Usually there are going to be gaps. There are going to be some very obvious things here, okay? So in 1929, the stock market crashed and sent the United States into the Great Depression. Although FDR promised a way out with the New Deal, his New Deal programs did not provide an immediate path to prosperity. It was only after World War II began that the United States began its exit from economic ruin as war production demands got America's factories going again. During this time, programs created by the New Deal ushered in a period of economic growth combined with stability. Now, note here is my thesis. Now, what I did here is I put these into 3 separate categories, okay? Now, one thing that I'm going to recommend to you, and let me just go ahead and run and get this, okay? So I'm just going to run and go, I'm going to run and go get this, and let's see what we can do here, okay? So I'm going to run and go get this in my Google Drive. I have got, a setup sheet that I created for y'all. Now, I think it might say AP Euro on it right now, but who cares, right? Because it's all the same thing. So let me just run in here real quick and see if I can find this. All right. So AP Euro, what I'm going to do here, actually, I've got it called AP History Digital Exam. Okay, so History Digital DBQ Annotation Guide. My recommendation for the DBQ tomorrow would be, as far as that goes, I think that, don't read the documents like they're Harry Potter. If this were a paper pencil test, you would be thinking in terms of that you want to annotate the documents, or you don't want to, but you're doing it, okay? And so with that, I'm going to share this Google Doc here that's got the annotation sheet. And so I'm going to go over this with you, kind of what I would do, how I would use this, okay? So going into that, what we're going to look at here is I've got something for you, and I would print this out because the exam is going to lock down your browser tomorrow. So as far as that goes, and if you can't get into it right now, save the link, refresh it, get into it later. If you're in here, because a lot of people are coming in, copy everything, paste it into a new document, and get out of the document so that other people can access it. So basically what we're going to do here for each document, use or strike. Now, if you're trying to get full credit, my advice is to use all 7 documents. Now, if you're not, if you're like, you know what, I'm just trying to pass this thing, and getting a 4 or 5 on a DBQ is fine, because that a 4 or 5 on the DBQ puts you on the path to making a 4 on the exam. So if you decide you only want to use 4 documents, then it frees you up to strike 3 of the documents, okay? And so as far as that goes, what's a brief summary of the document? Now, that didn't need to be in complete sentences. This is just for your records. What argument does it support? And how can we use any kind of hit, POV, cap, outside evidence, whatever we're calling it right now, okay? And so with that, I've got something here, and then I've got something for your setup. I would print this stuff out, okay? I would recommend that to you. Now, as far as what we saw here, that what we've got here on the DBQ rubric is that when we look at the documents, the evidence, and the analysis, okay? So first of all, accurately describes the content of at least 3 documents to address the topic of the prompt. Now, remember, quoting is not a good idea. Now, quoting on AP English, as I talked to, Tim Freitas from the Garden of English, if you're not following that channel, you should be. So with that, Tim and I were talking, and on AP Lang, it can actually be a good thing. Okay, it can actually be a good thing to be able to see that. Okay, so it might be a good thing to quote. Okay, so with that, as far as going in and seeing that accurately describes the content of at least 3 documents to address the topic of the prompt. Now, this is what I call the I love lamp point, because you're basically saying that you're showing the reader that you understood what you read. So for 3 documents, if you understood what you read, there you go. Okay. And then we've got supports an argument in response to the prompt using at least 6 documents. Now that means you don't just know what you read, but you're using these documents to support an argument. You're not just like document 1 says, document 4 says, you are actually supporting an argument. So with this, this is something, if you're not going for full credit and trying to make a 5 on this exam, I would not worry about using 6 documents. Instead, I would opt for this point and this point, okay? Explains how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, and or audience is relevant to an argument. So you're doing like some analysis there. Then we've got a piece of additional historical evidence. Now, once again, socially distanced from the documents. If it's not socially distanced from the documents, you're only really giving the specific documents historical situation or small c context, as some people say. So as far as that, looking at this, when I went through the documents, all right, what I did here is I went through here and it was like document 1. I saw the Montgomery GI Bill, which is designed to provide World War II veterans with assistance attending college. Okay. So with that, okay, so, so with that, just one second. All right, so the GI Bill. Now, as far as that goes, how did economic growth change things? Okay, so what I'm saying here is there's the expansion of the welfare state. Basically, think about this. If the United States were still in the Depression, FDR giving out free college, and this is in the 1940s, this is not like in the 2020s, where college is normalized. Like college back then was something that was really only for a few people before World War II. So this takes a big step into normalizing college, okay? And so increased access to education. Actually, I probably should post on Instagram or something, normalize college. Now, if anybody follows me on Instagram during this broadcast at Tom Richey, then I'm going to, I'll call you out. I'll give you a little shout out here because we see here Ayat, Sangwan is, let's see, Paula, Ariana, Nizzy Keers, Owen, Wallace, and Sasha. Thank you for Clarissa Bell giving some love to Harambe, RIP. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, anybody who follows me on Instagram, I'm going to give you a shout out, definitely, okay? And so as far as that goes, that's what we'll be, that's what we'll be doing later. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, so with this, we could talk about this in the context of New Deal programs as well. So then we've got, for document 2, a whites only property deed from Seattle, Washington. Now, what argument could I support? I could say here that and this is where I'm kind of going through, and I'm not just reading the documents like I'm reading Harry Potter or something like that, but, Expelliarmus, I want to get that argument out of the document. There's an argument hiding in that document, and I'm like, Expelliarmus. I don't know if a spoon makes a good one, but y'all get what I mean. There's like an argument in there. Expelliarmus. And you get that argument out of there so that you can use this to actually argue a point. And what I saw here is thinking about, well, the greater prosperity is actually encouraging a campaign for greater racial equality. Okay. And so with that, and then I've got to find these documents buddies, okay? I love the Minions. Y'all know Minions 2? Like, it's not going to be till 2022. I guess that Minions 2, 2022. I'm still like, it was supposed to be 2020. It's like the worst thing that happened about 2020. But I guess another, movie got to win like Best Picture or something. But with that, we've got other documents, and then as I go through, I'm going to find that there is, okay, pair with document 2 to show insignificant change, okay, in racial equality. And so as far as that, goes, then when I get there, now if I'm not going for complex understanding, if y'all are just like, don't try it, Anakin, and you have, it's like, you think, hey, this DBQ's got the high ground, I'm not even trying that. 2 arguments is going to be fine. 2 groups of documents with like 2 each, and then getting some, some outside evidence in there is going to be fine. But what I did here is I'm saying, okay, this is changing a lot. Okay, so I've got 2 categories here that are changing a lot. Okay, and so going from there, we've got 2 categories. Oops, that's not let's see. I don't know if that's not what I was trying to do here. Highlight. Okay, I want to highlight those. And then here is my counter argument that I'm going to note here. So remember, when we're thinking about like how to set these things up, what's the difference between just being able to understand what you read in the documents and using them to support an argument? Well, notice what I've got here. My arguments being, when I look at my thesis, economic growth during and after World War II led to very significant changes. Now, note here, we want to get into the degree of change if it's about change over time. Now, most likely, Your DBQ will be a causation DBQ, asking you to go into the causes or the effects of something, or it will be a CCOT DBQ. Those are the most common formats. And so economic growth during and after World War II led to very significant changes in American society, especially in terms of access to education and white-collar employment. Now, white-collar employment, that is like somebody that works at a school or a bank or, an attorney or somebody, or a corporate America, okay? And so white-collar employment, you don't work outside, okay? That basically blue collar manual labor, white collar employment, typically you don't work with your hands and you had to receive an education to get that job. So very significant changes in American society in terms of access to education and white collar employment, along with new technologies that increase the middle class standard of living. Now, this is a perfectly good thesis for the thesis point. Now, if I'm going for complex understanding, then the best way to start doing that. Now, remember, complex understanding, the reader doesn't owe it to you. There's nothing that you can do to guarantee that you get that point, but you can do things to let the reader know you deserve it. And so what you would do is you would add that last part there. However, social relations between the races remain strained throughout the period in spite of efforts by government to promote greater racial equality. And so with this, what's the difference, Richey, from noting that you understood what a document said to using it to support an argument? So what I do here is every paragraph begins with an argumentative topic sentence. So economic growth also resulted in the popularization of new technologies, which were affordable for the middle class and increase the middle class standard of living. Now, which means that everything in here needs to be about how new technologies increase the standard of living. So there's one that talks about, a woman purchasing a washing machine, the television. Now, this point here, this point is what I'm getting in the blue. If you want to know what is the blue, this point is the purple. Okay, some people like purple. It's a good color for some folks. And so with that, some people so with that, we've got here, this is where you're giving an explanation. Okay, so with that, the blue is supports. Now, if it supports an argument, it had to do this, okay? It had to do this in order to do this. So if you're going for this point becomes irrelevant. So this is what's in the blue, and this is what's in the, is what is in the purple, okay? And so with that, and then we'll see here that as we're going through here, a magazine advertisement for a convertible urged families to buy a second car. So it still goes along with this. New technologies, higher middle class standard of living. And so then we see here, I see another thing about the interstate highway system. Now note, when you see a visual source, make a specific reference to them. And I always try to stay out of the document 1 says, document 4 says, and what I've got here is McCall's magazine mentions a couple who are enjoying the prosperity of the post-war period by purchasing a washing machine and a television. And that supports the claim in the topic sentence, okay? And then I put my nice little parenthetical citation. So then the last paragraph, although economic growth made a major impact in middle-class life, it did not do much to improve social relations between the races between 1940 and 1970, in spite of efforts by the government to promote greater racial equality. So then I've got a couple of things to support that, and they're both supporting this argument. And then notice that my outside evidence, it can't just be a name drop. It cannot just be a word or phrase. I usually tell people, if you're going for outside evidence, 2 sentences at least, so that you go into what it is and you go into the significance as well, okay? So as far as that goes, getting into this, this is something that is extremely important here, okay? So there had been no progress, and this is not to say there had been no progress in racial equality at all. Now, I'm even putting a counter argument into my counter argument paragraph. How complex is that? I tell you what. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are some tips for the DBQ. And remember, you can watch me walk through the 2020 DBQ. You can see that on my YouTube channel. You can see that, we've got, 2021 APUSH DBQ walkthrough. Okay. And so as far as that goes, that's something that we've got there, and you are welcome. And this is linked in that description. Okay, so with that, that is a little introduction to the DBQ and how to score points on that. Now, remember, I would advise you to print out that sheet that I shared earlier, the AP History DBQ annotation guide. I think that is very important to have that printed out. Okay, and so with that, I've got some shout outs to give. Bella Johnson, Riley B. Jackson, Bite Size Delights Official. Let's see, what is Bite Size Delights Official? Oh my goodness, that looks delicious. All right, so with that, we've got M.I.R.I. Gosh, that is a lot there. Okay, so with that, we've got JDV. We've got Garden Witch and Spelka, Michael Castillo, Space Boy Logan. That score is going to be in space. Inshore Matt is showing Harambe some respect. Also, if you follow Harambe Movie on Instagram, it's called @Harambe Movie. They're making a documentary about Harambe, and that's going to give you some great karma. Okay, so with that, Mailing 54, Inshore Matt, Yoshimoshi draws. Let's see what Yoshimoshi. Oh my goodness, Yoshimoshi is drawing. Okay, so with that, we've got a lot of folks there, and Olivia Gallo, Andrea MCV, Goopoo Boy, and Livia, NYLA Lovelock, and so we've got Sean Chori, period M, and Sissy. All kinds of great people, Hut Pockets, and Anna Rons, and just a lot of other great people. Anthony, thank you so much. And Harambe Movie, I just want to see how many people are following this account. It's currently got 319. 319, and they should probably be following me back. Y'all probably should go like a photo and be like, y'all should follow Tom Richey back. He sent y'all a lot of followers. They're still not following me back, but they're making a movie about Harambe, and I'm looking forward to next Friday. I'm actually going to be having an event on my channel here to raise money for the Harambe movie. I try to do a charity thing every year, and I'm looking forward to that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and go on to the next question. Okay, so let's see what we've got here on the next question. Okay. Do we need, okay, so for full points, yes. Okay, so Alex, I would say that now the thing is, there are different roads that lead to that, but the one I recommend is a counter argument. Now, here's the good thing about a counter argument is it's very difficult to use all 7 documents without a counter argument. So that's one thing that I'm going to throw out there, that it's extremely difficult to get all 7 documents without a counter argument, because all 7 documents are not going to lean one way. So the best thing, if you're going for a full credit DBQ, and again, unless you're reasonably sure you have a chance to make a 5, you really don't need to try to go through all of that rigmarole to try to get all 7 points. I would go for 4 or 5 of them. Okay, I would not worry about the 6 documents. I would not worry about complex understanding, and that's still a sure path to a 4. Now, remember, I've got formulas where you can get a 5 without complex understanding. You don't need complex understanding to get a 5. And so with that, the other thing is, if you have not been consistently writing full credit DBQs, don't try to write a full credit DBQ tomorrow all of a sudden on the exam. Like, that is just really, like, think about professional athletes. Like, think about, like, Michael Phelps, if he was just like, you know what, I'm just going to get in the pool and swim, y'all. I mean, that is one of those things, like, you have to, okay? So, I mean, you have to practice. You have to be, this is really like an athletic competition. So I would say don't bite off more than you can chew. It's better to go for like 4 points and get a reliable 4 points, which is going to put you above average and on a pretty sure path to passing. If you get 5 on the DBQ, it is very difficult for you to fail. okay, like for you to fail the exam. So as far as that goes, I would say that it's very difficult to get full credit without a counter argument. And remember, the counter argument does not have to be a refutation. The counter argument is just saying, like, look, you know, this is there, but I acknowledge that this is also there, just not quite as much as this, okay? And so that's the thing, and I think it just adds a lot of finesse to your argument. So going with that, the main ideas you'll be tested on, Shelby, I have no idea what you're going to be tested on tomorrow. Contrary to popular belief, the College Board does not send me an advanced copy of your exam. Understand that the exam you're taking tomorrow, it is not going to be comprehensive. There are going to be, I think that I calculated it before, that maybe about 15 to 20 specific topics end up being tested. And so there's a lot of stuff that you're going to be like, this wasn't on the exam, that wasn't on the exam, the other wasn't on the exam. And so as far as that goes, that is you know, something to think about there. But yeah, I have no idea. Best thing I can say is good luck. Okay. How much information, you know, oh, okay, great. People have got some content questions. Okay. Oh my goodness, Viviki is here. I am sure going to go over the main points of Reconstruction, Viviki. So with that, you know, this is one of those things that the major civil rights organizations, okay, so Renee, let me actually find some tutoring notes that I did recently with a client, okay, so I'm going to run into, you know, where I've got some tutoring notes, you know, going in that. Okay, so let me see if I can find, okay. You know, so as far as that goes, you know, we see this. Let's see that I need to. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up something that, you know, I'm going to pull up something here that, you know, is something that I think is going to be helpful to addressing this concern. Okay. So with this, let's see, I'm about to share this. Let me make sure I'm sharing it with everybody. And I'm going to put this into the chats. Okay. So I'm going to put this into the chats so that y'all can see my notes here. Okay. So let me run into the chat here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get that going in the chat. I just shared something in the chat. This is a Pog moment, y'all. This is a Pog moment, okay? This is like really valuable information that I'm sharing with y'all. All right, Pog in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. So going from there, okay, so as far as Abby's, all right, thank you so much, Abby's. Abby's all like, thank you, Tom. Very cool. All right, so going from there, the major civil rights organizations, okay? So one thing I'm going to note here is, yeah, we got a big Pog moment here, ladies and gentlemen. So remember, I shared earlier the annotation sheet and setup guide. So with that, you know, the Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s, okay, and so, you know, so as far as that goes, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Civil Rights Act of 1968. So with that, I always start with the Civil Rights Act of 1968 because it's pretty simple, the Fair Housing Act. Okay, so as far as that goes, the Fair Housing Act, which banned discrimination in housing, both in purchasing and renting. Okay, so that's something there, both in purchasing and renting. Okay, that as far as that goes, that there is, you know, that's basically Civil Rights Act of 1968, Fair Housing Act. Now, if you want to get a little bit more complex, the historical context, this was passed about a week after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., which resulted in rioting across the United States. So Congress responds, you know, in an attempt to try to stop the rioting, okay, we're going to stop discrimination in housing, which this is something that document 2 in the DDQ, in the release DDQ this year, went into, excuse me, an actual property deed that basically said that on the sale, on the deed of sale for the house, it said only white people can live here. unless they're domestic servants. There can be no black people, no Hispanics, no no Asians, nothing unless they're domestic servants. And it said that in the deed, and that was legal until 1968. So this was an attempt to try to stop rioting, okay, to try to stop rioting. Now, in order, I guess, to get some conservatives to go along with this, so now notice 64, hotel accommodations and stuff and restaurants, but not in purchasing or renting a home or an apartment. So one thing, if you want to get deep into it, the 1968 Act also included an anti-riot act, which made it a federal crime to cross state lines with the intent of participating in or inciting a riot. Okay, so that's something that we'll see there. And so with that, of course, that's probably in the process of being used right now, against some folks from January. So this is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 that was kind of tacked on there. And so with that, as far as that goes, then we go back to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. No racial discrimination in public accommodations. Also prohibited discrimination in the workplace, okay, requiring employers to be equal opportunity employers. Now, with the exception of employers that, that are qualifying for religious exemptions. So with that, we see these things here. So going from there, that we see now. Also, one thing to note here is that in 2020, very recently, the Supreme Court ruled that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 also protects Americans from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Those were not part of the original act, but the Supreme Court just recently ruled that covers, discrimination based on sexual orientation and or gender identity. The way I've explained this and the way that Justice Gorsuch, in his opinion, is explaining it, it's essentially like if I reported to work wearing a dress, okay, and I got sent home. I'm not being sent home because I'm wearing a dress. I'm being sent home because I was born a biological male. Okay, so that is, basically, as far as that goes, that's the way the Supreme Court interprets that. As far as sexual orientation and gender identity, that those are protected because, you can't have essentially a dress code for men and a dress code for women. Okay, that is something that the Supreme Court now has said that is unconstitutional based on the language of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, national origin, and gender. Okay, so from there, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, it prohibited states and local governments from using practices that had been used to discriminate against racial minorities in voting, such as literacy tests. Now, in certain jurisdictions, mostly in the South, with established histories of voter discrimination, it subjected them to pre-clearance before changing any voting laws. Now, that's another place where the Supreme Court has weighed in. They have struck down the pre-clearance provision, basically just saying, though, that it has to, the provision itself is not unconstitutional, but saying that Congress has to update the standards, okay? They have to show that there has been discrimination in recent years in that state. So with that, these are the three acts. Now, what we're going to note here also is that these were part of LBJ's Great Society. Okay, so these were all, these acts were all passed during Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay, so Lyndon B. Johnson's, presidency. Okay, so we would note as part of his Great Society. Okay, so when we talk about the Great Society, so part of his Great Society initiative to eliminate, poverty, and racial discrimination. Okay, so and that's something that's come up before, asking people to compare the Great Society with the New Deal. And one of the things there is both of them, had anti-poverty provisions, but remember that the New Deal, although it provided economic relief for minorities, it did not have any kind of civil rights provisions, because FDR did not want to basically, what happens as a result of this, that the New Deal coalition breaks up. FDR relied on support from Southern whites in order to be president. And so with that, now note here that a lot of people have a misunderstanding and an oversimplification. Like I've had some students and clients that they're like, nonviolent and violent. Okay, I would not use those terms. Okay, I would use the terms like nonviolent and militant. Okay, that as far as that goes, it would not be accurate to say, for example, that Malcolm X promoted violence. Actually at his funeral, the person delivering the eulogy said, Malcolm X, like, where did you ever see him present during a riot? When did you ever see a riot start because of him? And so this is, if we look at Malcolm X, looking out the window. Now that's actually Ice Cube's got a lyric where he's like, and I'm looking out the window like Malcolm. When he's saying that, he's like, I am, everybody wonder how come I got a gat and I'm looking out the window like Malcolm. So when he says that, I got a gat and I'm looking out the window like Malcolm, what he's saying here is like Malcolm X. Now this is where Malcolm X had someone photograph him holding a high-powered rifle, but he's looking out the window. His posture is defensive. He's not trying to use it. He's just saying, if somebody comes at my family, I'm going to use this. And this was actually directed toward the Nation of Islam that he had been a part of. Now, that's not to be confused with mainstream Islam, which Malcolm X embraced later in life. Okay, so as far as that goes, that when I say, so the nonviolent civil rights movement, that basically, it rejected violence. It stuck by Dr. King's teachings, even in cases of self-defense. Okay, that's one thing that Malcolm X said in a speech where he said, look, if somebody sicks dogs on me like they're doing in Birmingham, I'm going to kill that dog. Okay, and that is not like that is not promoting violence. That's just promoting American ideas of self-defense. So as far as that goes, I was, when I was making this with my client, when you're asking, are there any circumstances during any period in the history of the United States in which it would not be socially acceptable for a white American to use violence in self-defense? And it makes you rethink, what people are saying about what Malcolm X promoted, okay? And so with this, what we note here is when we look at the nonviolent civil rights movement, I would note especially the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Dr. King's organization, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And that is John Lewis, who just passed last year. Okay, John Lewis, who was a congressman, he was a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee from 1963 to 1966. And basically, they were pursuing integration and an end to discriminatory laws and practices that kept Black Americans marginalized in society. Now, marches and sit-ins, these are going to be the most used things here. Remember, a sit-in, that is where they would go into a place where, it was whites only, and they would sit there and they would wait to be arrested. And that would get on the news that these young Black men were arrested because they, came into the Woolworth store and tried to sit at the counter. And so that's something we see here. And this branch of the civil rights movement was predominant during the 1950s and early 1960s. So we want to note kind of a change over time, because what happens here is some of these folks that have been in the movement for a while, they see a lack of progress. And this is what is spurring these riots in 1968, that with this, and it's like, that's not to defend riots or anything like that. It's like, Dr. King, when you take the whole quote, he says riots are the language of the unheard, but riots are not an effective tool long term. Okay, so the thing is, when there's rioting, there is a purpose for it, but it doesn't make it right. There was something that caused it, but it doesn't make it right. So as far as that goes, that's what Dr. King, said, that you got, you want to listen to these folks. It's kind of like Jefferson after, after Shays' Rebellion. And, he's like, look, these people should be punished very lightly. And they should be listened to. Their concerns should be heard. And that's what Jefferson had to say about Shays' Rebellion. And Washington, of course, after the Whiskey Rebellion, Washington, there were a couple people sentenced to hang, but George Washington commuted their sentences, so, riots go all the way back to, like, Shays' Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion, long history of riots in the, in the United States. And so basically what you see here in the mid to late 1960s, in response to the assassinations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, we see here there is a frustration with a lack of progress over civil rights legislation. And so as far as that goes, what I call the militant civil rights movement, that the activists should be able to use violence in self-defense if attacked, okay? So as far as that, they defended the use of violence if they were attacked. Some favored carrying firearms in public and bringing guns to protest. Now, if you look at the history of gun control started, it was actually a conservative thing in the 1960s that was against, like, this is back when Ronald Reagan, was the governor of California. California had a conservative Republican government, and there were these young black men carrying shotguns, in LA. And that's why some states, that don't have open carry, like the banning of open carry was partly motivated to say to these young black men, you can't carry shotguns around anymore. And so with that, we note here that and carrying a firearm in public in most states is not illegal. Open carry in the majority of states, it's not illegal. It's using a firearm that to commit a violent act that is illegal. So the thing is, these young black men would say, look, I want to be seen in public with a firearm, showing that I'm willing to fight back if attacked. Now, a few favored riots as a method of advancing political change, but this is not something that that would be something that would be mainstream there, even within these movements. So the Nation of Islam, otherwise known as the Black Muslims, now Malcolm X had been a part of this organization, and actually left it later on. And of course, that's one of the theories about his assassination. So with that, later on, he became an Orthodox Muslim. Now, he renounced racial prejudice, but he never renounced the idea of black nationalism. Black nationalism, going back to Marcus Garvey, this idea that the black community needs to help itself. Marcus Garvey being somewhat, I wouldn't call Booker T. Washington a black nationalist, but I would say that there's kind of like a lineage that goes from Booker T. Washington to Marcus Garvey to Malcolm X. Malcolm X's father was actually a Garveyite preacher. And so whereas you've got with Dr. King and his movement going back to W.E.B. Du Bois, okay? So as far as that goes, now we can also remember the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, okay, so, or the NAACP. Now, this is something that this was, Thurgood Marshall, okay, so Thurgood Marshall, established himself, his reputation as an attorney, okay, so for the NAACP in Brown v. Board, okay, Brown v. Board. So thinking about this. Now, the Black Panther Party, this was organized, by disillusioned SNCC alumni, okay? So the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, there are people like Stokely Carmichael, who had been part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and later on formed the Black Panther Party that said that we no longer believe in Dr. King's doctrine of nonviolence. Now, also, I'm from Louisiana, and there's actually, I think Showtime made a movie a while back, some years ago, the Deacons for Defense. This was a group of black men that organized in Bogalusa, Louisiana. There was a lot of Klan-oriented violence, and they organized the Deacons for Defense. This is something that this is affiliated with the church, and it's not that they are going out and proactively using violence, but they're saying that we are willing to protect our community from racist violence. violence. Okay, so that's the thing, that you're not seeing like the advocacy of violence, but that is something that is on the table. Now, Malcolm X, he said by any means necessary, to pursue questions of human dignity. So as far as that goes as well, these groups generally pursued Black nationalism rather than integration. Okay, so Black nationalism, a philosophy going back to Marcus Garvey. Okay, so Garvey in the 1920s rather than integration. So as far as that goes, again, violence against violence. Okay, and so with this, Malcolm X is definitely not somebody who ever advocated for that. So just a few things if you're thinking about the civil rights movement, and remember that also you can associate these acts with Lyndon Johnson, right along with Medicare and Medicaid and some of these other programs, food stamps, these things to get rid of poverty. And so as far as that goes, yeah, so Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, let me actually, I'm not going to go in, I want to get to Vicky's question about Reconstruction because she's been awesome for, 2 years now. Let's see here, Booker T. Washington. Okay, so Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay, let me see. So Booker T. Washington versus W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in the chat. Okay, so I've got I've got a Google document here where I am, putting this out there. Okay, so with this, I'm going to go ahead and put this into the chats as well. Let me make sure that I've got this here, and let me go ahead and put these into the chats. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this going here. All right, so we've got that, and let me put it into this here. Again, another Pog moment. That basically, when you're thinking about Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, it's like, how do we most effectively respond to situations that are facing the Black community in particular during this time? So you think about it, poverty, unequal access to education, lack of training for skilled jobs, political and social, Jim Crow segregation, no voting rights, unequal justice, and the lynching crisis. So which one of these do you try to solve first? Which one of these is more pressing? Or can they be approached at the same time? Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, they are both trying in good faith to advance the interest of Black Americans. Okay, so both of them, they are both acting in good faith to try to advance the interest of Black Americans. Now, Booker T. Washington, best known for his Atlanta Compromise speech or Atlanta speech, cast down your bucket where you are, that he's basically asking, white Americans for help. Andrew Carnegie was a big donor to Booker T. Washington and his Tuskegee Institute, where he emphasized both educational and vocational training. And so with that, I've got some things here that basically, and both of them can be seen as progressive, okay? Both of them can be seen in the spirit of progressivism, okay? That depending, because there's not just one progressivism, okay? So when we look here, both, can be seen, in the context of the progressive movement, basically the context of American progressivism at the turn of the 20th century. Okay, so both of these men can be seen, we're thinking about American progressivism during that time. Okay, and let me see if I can get that back up there. Okay, so as far as that goes there. So with that. Okay, so with that, that's what we're seeing there. And I got to get this thing on one page, but I think I can do it. I can do it. I got this. Okay, so with that, we got this back on one page. All right, I feel like I'm winning here. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are some things here that will help you out. And if you want to go deeper into that, now, and again, some of y'all are doing some great things, following me, tonight, and some of y'all are kind of new, to what I'm doing here. We've got Ryan Batty, Louise, and Kate, Glenn, B33, Jay Fada, And remember, I'm here. Thank you, Julia Warren. So we've got, Sam and other folks. Now, remember, I also do APUS government and AP European history. Okay. So if you take either of those subjects, I'm here for you. If you get in college, a lot of college students use my videos. So stay in touch with me. I've got a lot of things that I can do to help you, no matter where you're moving on to. And so with that, let me go ahead and get into presidential and radical reconstruction, okay? Now, as far as that goes, on the digital exam, y'all don't have to write an LEQ, okay? So y'all don't have to write an LEQ. But as far as that goes, let's see. AP, let's see. So this is APUSH, not AP Euro, right? Okay, so as far as that goes, let me run in here. This is a DBQ setup, but an LEQ setup, but at the same time, I think that it's something that is going to be helpful for you just for a quick review of Reconstruction and what's going on there. Okay, so going from that, let's go ahead and, and take a look here. All right, so going from that, let's go ahead and let's see here. So as far as that goes, what if we got something, now again, you don't have an LEQ, but it's still going to be helpful. Evaluate the extent to which presidential Reconstruction differed from radical Reconstruction in the period from 1863 to 1877. Now, presidential Reconstruction, this is from about 1863 to 1866, 67. This is basically Lincoln and Johnson's Reconstruction, okay? So both Johnsons, Andrew Johnson and Lyndon Johnson, they were both presidents who took over after another president was assassinated and tried to implement the programs of that administration. So basically, remember that Abraham Lincoln, he wasn't a fan of slavery, but as far as that goes, his goal in fighting the Civil War was always to preserve the Union and abolish slavery. And the 10% plan, okay? So as far as that goes, the 10% plan, this is something that is, Lincoln just basically giving a generous Reconstruction plan. Now, with that, I need to make sure for anybody that's watching this later that I need to adjust the questions here, okay? So with that, and again, Vicky with a winning question there, about 15 people loving that. All right, so best of luck tomorrow on that exam. And so with that, the 10% plan, okay, Lincoln's like, look, 10% of people that voted in the 1860 election, swear an oath to the United States, there you go. So the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, all right? And basically, I ask a trick question when I'm teaching in person. Then I ask, what did the 13th Amendment do? Abolish slavery. Then I ask, what else did the 13th Amendment do? And I hear the things that people are saying. I'm like, what else did the 13th Amendment do? And then finally, I say it's a trick question. Didn't do anything, okay? Didn't do anything else, okay? Now, Kanye may have something to say about that, but, as far as the purposes of this course, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but didn't do anything else. It did not declare what the rights were of freedmen and women and whether they had a right to equality under the law. So this is something here that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but that was, that was about it. Now then, black codes were enacted by southern states, okay? Basically, it's like, okay, you're not enslaved anymore, but you still are going to be treated like second class, people who live here rather than citizens. Whereas radical Reconstruction, what we see here is, in addition to abolishing slavery, citizenship and voting rights. The Wade Davis bill, this is the bill that Abraham Lincoln pocket vetoed, okay? And so with that, that was where they wanted a stricter Reconstruction, something that was going to punish the white American South, the former Confederates. Kind of like when you think about the Treaty of Versailles. Presidential Reconstruction is Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Radical Reconstruction is basically Britain and France. We want those reparations. And so that is, that's radical Reconstruction. Now, radical Reconstruction, you've got the 14th and 15th Amendments, okay? So the 14th Amendment, it defines citizenship as being a birthright. And it also is, says that everyone has the right to equal protection of the laws, okay? So that's something that you want to note there. And then the 15th Amendment saying that voting rights cannot be denied to someone based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Now, it's not until the 1960s that we see things like literacy tests and poll taxes that are gotten rid of. Now, poll taxes, those are done by a constitutional amendment. So with that, the 15th Amendment, voting rights. Okay, so basically, but then again, remember after 1877, you got Jim Crow, Plessy v. Ferguson, and these rights are going to basically get smothered under some other regulations. Well, grandfather clause, literacy test, poll tax, finding ways to deny voting rights to Black Americans without actually saying you can't vote because you're Black. Now, they both tried to improve the lives of African Americans in the South after the Civil War. The Freedmen's Bureau was something that was began by presidential Reconstruction and then actually, going into radical Reconstruction. And thank y'all so much. We've got Ja, Ray, Chai, Tra, Sam, Aiden, and Kian, and Amy Gruber. Thank you so much for your, for your support on the gram. All right. So thank y'all so much for that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you the Romulus, the Romulus APUSH review app is available at the App Store. There are free practice tests and also study guides available at marcolearning.com. Now, I'm going to be going over to Marco Learning's YouTube channel in just a bit. Okay, so I'm about to close, close this. So, remember the SAQs, specific answer questions. Don't think about them as short answer questions. Think about them as specific answer questions. But Romulus APUSH review is available at the App Store and at Google Play. MarcoLearning.com. We've got all kinds of great stuff there. Make sure to go to Marco Learning's YouTube channel. I'm going to be there in about 13 minutes. I'm going to be starting, a stream over there with John, and we're going to do some last minute APUSH reviews. So y'all go ahead and make sure they're at 18.8 right now. Let's see if we can get them to 20K or at least 18.9. Let's see what we can do there. So we're going to get some stuff there. They've just wrapped up their other thing there. So I think that we are that we're good to go there. So with that, so 18.8, let's see if we can get them up to 18.9, but y'all go ahead and go over there, youtube.com/Marco Learning. Now, remember also, I'm going to be at 10 o'clock tonight, going to be offering an APUSH SAQ clinic, okay? And so that SAQ clinic, we're going to go over some SAQs that I've written that are in the format of this exam, okay? So as far as that goes, I want to note here, let's go ahead and let's see here. I'll show you what we're going to be solving tonight, okay? So just so you can see what's going on here is that I've got one here. You normally don't have a primary source SAQ. So we're going to have here a primary source SAQ. Oh, that needs to be updated, but it will be to make sure we've got the source there, but that will be updated. All right, so going from there, a primary source SAQ. And then let's see, so we've got then a map SAQ. Okay, so as far as that goes, a map SAQ, going to be looking at a map of slavery in 1860 on a map and seeing how does this affect, what led to it, what did it affect, all of that. And then the last thing is we're going to look at some data having to do with the Great Depression. Okay, so looking at, some data there with the Great Depression and how are we going to tackle that. So during that clinic, I'm going to be going into ways to do that. And also, I'm going to, everybody that's in this, if you want to pitch in with your friends, one of the things that I'll do when I start the clinic, I'm going to put in a link to where, any friends that you have that you want to send that link to, they can watch it on YouTube. There's going to be a co-stream that's a private stream on YouTube. So if you buy into that, I'll give you a link that you can share it with your friends. Okay, so we're going to have a good time there at 10 p.m. Remember, it's also going to be something that you can watch later. You can watch it in the morning or anything about that. Marco Learning will just be a Q&A, and for those of you who won't be joining me at 8, never mind, at 8 I'm going to be going back to my channel broadcast for YouTube. So basically, Marco Learning is going to be more Q&A like this based on who's there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish everybody the best of luck, and y'all go ahead and go to Marco Learning's YouTube channel. Let's see if we've got some more subscribers for them there. I'd love to get them up to at least 18.9, still at 18.8, but y'all go ahead and wait over there at 7:30. John and I are going to be broadcasting, and thank y'all. Vicky, hopefully you have a wonderful exam tomorrow, okay? So, you know, I appreciate your support, and good luck. Maya, do I need to do a couple shout outs? Y'all go ahead and put some shout outs there, and if I see them in the chat, I'll go ahead and make a note from there. Okay, so if we see anything, Memistar doesn't even take APUSH. Okay, so we've got here. Are there anything that y'all want me to do a quick shout out? The Wilmot Proviso. Okay, so with that, yeah, the Wilmot Proviso never passed, but in practice it did. Okay, so what to note there is no slave states ever came into the Union between like the Wilmot Proviso in 1860. So while it technically never passed, in spirit it kind of did. And so with that, can I do a dab? I can do a dab. The Nene, I'm not so sure. Hey there, Raul, and thank you so much, Raul students, Vicky students. The SAQ clinic, that is on Crowdcast, crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. I'll go ahead and share that one more time in the chat, okay? So to buy into the SAQ clinic that we're doing here, then there you go. Oh, Jonas, how you doing, my friend? There's my good friend, Jonas. Jonas, I hope you rock it tomorrow. Jonas is a VIP client, okay? We're talking VIP, ladies and gentlemen. So glad to see you, Jonas, and you know, that's great. George Washington, get a shout out. Rehan, we've got a shout out there. And so this stream will be available after. Julia Carlson, okay, and okay, Jackson, come on, not funny. Tanya Price, okay, so we've got a lot of you there. And so yeah, as far as that goes, you know, we've got some things here. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all. Or you know what, one more thing here. Let's see. Okay, so somebody is asking for a rap. Okay, so let me see here. The Compromise of 1850 rap. This is available on my SoundCloud, and I think it's actually on YouTube as well. So let's see what we've got. What we've got here. Okay.
One more. Shout out to Mr. Kez's class.
Okay, that's wait. Where's the music? Okay, so with that, audio one. Okay, here it is. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, Warm Water Records. Okay, so let's see here. I'm trying to find. Yeah, so Compromise of 1850 rap. All right. 1850, it's a national obsession. What is Congress gonna do with the Mexican cession? Let's admit California as a single free state. Southern congressmen unhappy, some are really irate. Stronger fugitive slave act to secure some Southern votes. I'm sharing it now, so I'm not rapping that part. Spotter Socrates out west, let the settlers decide. In New Mexico and Utah, Congress need not take a side. Gonna bail out Texas, pay off debt from their war, just as long as they're not claiming Santa Fe anymore. Finally outlaw the slave trade in Washington, D.C., but we're going to stop short of a ban on slavery, which they actually do during the Civil War. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to listen to that, that's on my SoundCloud, so y'all can go take a look at that. So thank y'all so much. Vicky says that it's fire, so it must be. Keith, excellent. Oh, thank you, Keith. All right, thank you, Keith. You're here even without you know, your students needing to. Thank you so much for your support. And we had a Pog moment in the chat, and let's just go ahead and end on that Pog moment, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, Marco Learning on YouTube. Okay, so go to Marco Learning. I'm going to be continuing this review, and then John's going to be continuing it from there. John's got years of experience in test prep. You're really going to want to meet him. So y'all go ahead and join me over there, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll get there. Yeah, Pog in the chat. If you're pogging, come along to Marco.